What is going on with the lightweight division? Dana White just announced multiple fights. He announced a card for UFC 322 at MSG and even added some fights to 321 in Abu Dhabi. But where was Paddy Pimblett, Arman Tsarukyan, and Justin Gaethje? Where are they? Arman Tsarukyan has not fought since UFC 300. The next event is 320 by the way, and we still haven't seen him. Paddy Pimblett is a fighter who I consider being one fight away from the title. Justin Gaethje does not deserve a title shot either in my opinion. I don't care if he's threatening retirement, but something has to be done in the lightweight division. Obviously, we still have the December pay-per-view left, so I'm going to predict that all four of these guys should be on that card. I think that is the best way to go about this. So ultimately, what I think has to be done is you have to give Arman Tsarukyan the title shot against Ilia Topuria. Yes, I understand he's been very inactive, and he was given a title shot and ended up pulling out the day before the fight. The UFC is angry at him, and Dana just does not want to put him in that position again. Trust me, I understand all of that. But the thing is, I'm not saying he should get the title shot because I feel like he's undeniable, but rather because he's just the best option. I will get to why Paddy and Gaethje aren't the right options to fight Ilia, but let me just talk first about why Arman is the best possible option. Let's be honest, out of those three guys, Arman is the guy that would actually cause people to have back and forth debates about who would win. There would be legitimate arguments for both sides. He's the best possible fighter that Ilia can fight right now. Khabib is obviously convinced that Arman Tsarukyan wins that fight, and like I said, I don't think it's crazy at all to pick Arman to win, but to be so dismissive of Ilia is crazy to me. I want to see the grappling exchanges. I was excited to see the grappling exchanges between Islam and Arman as well. I had picked Islam to win that fight, but I did think that was going to be his toughest fight. Yes, even tougher than fighting Volk the first time. It also seems like Arman's stock has taken a rise in some people's eyes, which is so funny to me with his inactivity. And what I mean by that is because since Ilia has been so dismissive of Arman and talking about how he will not give him a title shot and that he would vacate before he gives him a title shot, it's causing some fans to believe that Ilia is ducking. It's causing people to say that Arman beats Ilia. So this is great for Ilia's legacy if this fight actually happens. If this many people believe that he loses his fight, then it's perfect to prove people wrong. Khabib is saying that Arman wins this fight. If Ilia wins, then it makes his case for beating Islam look better. He will say Khabib is saying I would lose to Islam, just like how he was saying I would lose to Arman. He knows how big of a threat I am to Islam and he wants me to lose. Ilia would probably say something along those lines. If Ilia were to win, I know people would act like afterwards that this was the obvious outcome and they weren't picking Arman to win, but we will know the things they were saying beforehand. This is the best possible fight in terms of competitiveness and is Ilia's toughest test at lightweight. Moving on to Paddy and Gaethje, I would put Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje on the same card as well. Paddy is one fight away from fighting for the title. He's not ready as of right now. Because although the build-up with Ilia would be insane, it would miss the element of competitiveness. Whether it's true or not, the narrative surrounding that fight would be that Ilia wins it easily. Why waste one of the best build-ups on something like that? Because that will be the preconceived notion. Paddy's last three wins being over Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green, and Michael Chandler would be brought up and people would say that Ilia beats him easily. So why not put him against somebody that every UFC fan recognizes and a guy that I think Paddy would beat? Pimblett would beat Gaethje, and now the narrative around him fighting Ilia might change. Now you would have the element of the build-up in that fight between Ilia and Paddy, but you would also have the element of competitiveness. Right? Hamza versus Dricus had this element. Now the fight obviously didn't play out that way, but a lot of people were calling that a 50-50 fight. Ilia versus Paddy may not end up being a close fight, but if Paddy absolutely dominates Gaethje and Ilia beats Arman but doesn't look as dominant, then their fight would now be a discussion about who will win. And why Justin Gaethje doesn't deserve to fight for the title is because he doesn't really offer Ilia or the fans anything. If you want the fight that is the most competitive for Ilia, then you want him to fight Tsarukyan. If you want the fight that makes the most money and you don't want to risk losing that fight because Paddy loses before fighting Ilia, then Paddy's your guy. That fight would sell the most out of any of these. So what is Gaethje really good for at this point? His style of fighting is tailor-made for Ilia to do great against him. I feel for Ilia, and he talked about retiring if he doesn't get the shot, and he doesn't just want to be stuck fighting the young guys until he eventually loses. But this fight between Gaethje and Paddy would genuinely be a number one contender fight. I'm picking Paddy to beat Gaethje, but Gaethje could absolutely knock him out. Paddy's chin is questionable. I don't think this is feeding Gaethje to the wolves. This fight just makes perfect sense. Can you imagine a press conference with Ilia, Arman, Paddy, and Gaethje all up there at once? The division would finally start to make sense again. You would have a clear path. It's similar to the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division was such a mess for so long, and now they got Aspinall versus Gane and Volkov versus Almeida on the same card. So you will have the number one contender for your champion to fight, and they will both be on the same timeline. If Paddy were to beat Gaethje and then you have him come into the ring after Ilia wins, that would be the perfect way to end the year. I'm praying that this is what happens because let's be honest, if the rumor of them making Gaethje versus Topuria is true, then that's basically just a fight that doesn't do much for Topuria's legacy, and it's not a money fight either. Also, if that means that we get Arman versus Paddy, then I'm fine with it, but that does mean that we may never get to see Paddy versus Ilia, because I would pick Arman to beat Paddy. And the way Topuria's talked about how long he wants to fight, he just doesn't seem like the guy to hang around for a while. He will be a guy that retires too early rather than too late. And by the time Paddy gets 2 or 3 wins after losing to Arman, where will Topuria even be? Will he be a welterweight, or will he even still be fighting? The absolute best way to go about this is to have Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan and Paddy versus Gaethje. That whole saga will be chaos, the build-up will be crazy, and it creates the best possible future scenarios.